This is Dr. David Ritchie, board-certified Atlas Orthogonal Chiropractor. Welcome to my podcast, ADIO Above Down, Inside Out. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and find us on social media at Ritchie Chiropractic and Wellness. Enjoy.
Okay, I have a serious question for you. Have you dared to unlock your phone in the last, say, 48 hours?
I try to keep it to a minimum, honestly, just for my own sanity, but yes, inevitably. Why? What did you do?
Well, I made a tactical error. I made the mistake of whispering the words back pain within a 50-yard radius of my device. I didn't even type it. I just groaned it out loud. And now it is over. My algorithm is absolutely cooked.
Let me guess. You are now officially drowning in the wellness tsunami.
Tsunami is an understatement.
Yep.
It is a barrage. I mean, I'm seeing ads for cold plunges that cost more than my actual car. Salt caves, infrared saunas. I saw one ad yesterday for an ion-induced wave modulator.
I honestly don't even know what that is. And I read the medical journals for fun.
Neither do I. And my personal favorite from this morning was a fluorescent macroscopic anterior hull fractionator.
Wow.
Right. I am 99% sure they just strung random science words together to see if I would click it.
That sounds less like a medical device and more like a warp drive component from Star Trek.
Exactly. But look, this is the landscape right now, isn't it? The source material for our deep dive today starts exactly there. The author actually describes the current state of the health and wellness industry as a marketing war zone.
Yeah, we are just completely drowning in gadgets and gimmicks. And influencers who seem to have bypassed medical school entirely.
Right. The source calls this the Social Media Influencer Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And it is a pretty cynical look at who actually gets inducted into that Hall of Fame.
Very cynical. Because essentially it is anyone who just rolled out of bed, decided they were an expert, and started dispensing advice with 100% unearned confidence. You know the type.
Oh, absolutely.
The guy telling you to cure a herniated disc with an all-banana diet.
I have seen him. Or the water is a scam people.
Right. Or the edible sunlight crowd. That one is my favorite.
Edible sunlight. I mean, I love a sunny day, but I am not trying to digest photons for lunch. But here is the problem, and this is really where we need to start today for everyone listening. In the middle of all this noise, this absolute wall of nonsense, where does actual spinal care fit in?
That's the real question.
Because the source argues that legitimate chiropractic is getting completely muffled by the garbage.
It is. And honestly, the profession hasn't always helped itself either. Chiropractic often gets lost in the noise. Or worse, it creates the noise itself. The source paints this really funny but pretty damning picture of the typical chiropractic ad that pops up right after that edible sunlight video.
Oh, you mean the cheap special?
The classic $39 internet special.
I see these constantly. It is always the exact same pitch. Come in for $39 and we will give you a consultation, a full exam, x-rays, a report of findings, an adjustment, a session on a water massage table, reflexology.
And do not forget the complimentary coffee and a bagel with the doctor.
Right, the bagel. It is ridiculous. And the source adds this brutal kicker at the end. You get all that, plus a congratulatory slap on the ass on your way out.
It really paints a vivid picture, doesn't it? It frames healthcare as a transaction, just a fast food menu. I will take the number 4 with a side of Nick Cracking.
It really does. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to cut through that. We want to push past the banana diets, ignore the $39 specials, and find the signal in the noise.
Exactly.
Because the source argues that if you look past all the marketing, there is a very specific, highly precise subset of the field that is actually the future of healthcare.
That is right. We are diving deep into a specific technique called Atlas Orthogonal Chiropractic.
Which sounds like a mouthful. And we will break down exactly what those words mean. But before we get to the solution, I think we have to understand the trap.
Okay.
Why are those cheap specials so popular? Why do people keep going back to what the source calls the rack'em-crack'em style of chiropractic?
It is a great question, and the answer isn't just good marketing. According to the source, the answer is biological. It is all about the endorphin hit.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think we have all been there. You have a stiff neck, you crack it yourself, or you go to someone who twists you like a pretzel, and for a second...
It feels amazing.
It really does.
It does, and there's a very specific chemical reason for that. When you rapidly stretch a joint capsule, which is what happens during a generic manipulation, you fire off mechanoreceptors.
Mechanoreceptors.
Right. These are the sensors in your body that tell your brain where you are in space.
Okay, so you stimulate the sensors.
Yes. And that sudden barrage of input triggers a huge release of endorphins and enkephalins.
Mm-hmm.
These are your body's natural painkillers. They're chemically very similar to morphine, actually.
Wait, so you are literally getting high?
In a localized sense, yeah.
Yeah.
You get a 20-minute high. The source describes it as feeling fantastic for about 20 minutes.
But then it fades.
It always fades. And this is the quick fix trap. The source is very blunt about this. It asks, what does that quick crack actually accomplish structurally?
And the answer?
Nothing. You haven't moved the bone back to its proper place.
Yeah.
You have just mobilized it enough to drug the pain sensors for a little bit.
That is honestly kind of disheartening.
It is. But think about the analogy the source uses. It compares it to going to the gym.
Right, I remember this.
Imagine if you went to the gym, had one incredible workout, lifted heavy, sweated buckets, and then didn't go back for 6 months. Or you ate a single healthy salad, felt very virtuous, and then didn't eat another vegetable for half a year.
Yeah.
What would that accomplish for your actual physiology?
I mean, I really wish one salad every 6 months was enough. That would be the dream.
Wouldn't it?
But logically, I know it does absolutely nothing. You end up exactly where you started.
Exactly. Real healing, real physiological change, whether that's neuroplasticity, muscle growth, or spinal correction, it requires time and repetition. The source argues that the quick fix creates a cycle where you feel good for a moment, but you aren't actually correcting the underlying mechanical fault. You are just chasing that endorphin release over and over. You're treating the smoke, not the fire.
Okay, so if the quick fix is just a biological trick, and it's getting swallowed up by this tsunami of marketing nonsense anyway, what is actually left standing?
That is the pivotal question. The source argues that when the dust settles, when the nonsense tsunami recedes, only one thing will remain, and that is precision, specifically upper cervical care.
Okay, so let's shift gears then. We are leaving the rack'em crack'em world entirely behind. We are entering the world of the atlas. Now, for those of you listening who might not be anatomy nerds like we are, we need to define our terms here. What exactly is the atlas?
The atlas is your C1 vertebra. It is the very top bone in your neck, the first cervical vertebra. It is named after the Greek titan, Atlas, who held the world on his shoulders.
Because of the head.
Right, because physically, that is what this little 2-ounce bone does. It holds up the weight of your entire head, which is roughly 10 to 12 pounds.
That is like a bowling ball sitting on a napkin ring.
Essentially, yes. And it sits right at the base of your skull. It is the literal gateway between your brain and the rest of your body.
And this deep dive is specifically about atlas orthogonal. So atlas is the bone. What does orthogonal mean in this context?
Orthogonal is a mathematical term. It basically means at right angles or square. So in this clinical context, it means the atlas is sitting perfectly square relative to the head and the neck. It is not tilted. It is not twisted. It is structurally neutral.
Got it. Now, the source makes a really big deal about the distinction between this method and other ways of treating that specific bone, and it seems to boil down to a conflict between math and execution.
This is where it gets fascinating. The source points out that most upper cervical doctors, even the ones who aren't atlas orthogonalists, are incredibly obsessed with analysis. They are basically the engineers of the chiropractic world.
How so? Like, what are they doing differently?
They take highly specific 3D imaging or X-rays. They do the math. They calculate the misalignment of that bone down to tenths of a degree in 3 dimensions. Rotation, tilt, laterality.
Tenths of a degree? That seems a little excessive. Does a tenth of a degree really matter that much in the human body?
Think about it like the alignment on your car tires. If your front right tire is off by just a fraction of a degree, what happens over 10,000 miles?
The tire shreds, the steering wheel shakes the whole time.
Exactly. And that is rubber and steel. Now imagine that shaking, that friction, happening to the delicate nervous system tissue in your neck. So yes, tenths of a degree matter immensely.
Okay, so they do the math. They have the engineering level precision in the analysis. So where's the disconnect the source talks about?
The disconnect is in the delivery. The source argues that after doing all that incredibly precise math, measuring down to the millimeter, most doctors then deliver the adjustment by hand. Yes, they use a manual thrust. And the source argues that the human hand, no matter how skilled, no matter how many years of practice, simply cannot match that level of exactness. You can't calculate a vector to 0.5 degrees and then expect a manual shove to replicate that perfectly.
That makes a lot of sense. It is kind of like measuring a piece of wood with a laser micrometer and then trying to cut it with a rusty chainsaw.
That might be a slightly violent analogy,
Yeah.
But yes, the principle holds completely. If the analysis is digital, the correction shouldn't be analog.
So how does Atlas Orthogonal solve this? How do they get the laser cutter?
They remove the variable of the human hand from the actual delivery of force. Atlas Orthogonal uses a specific, calibrated instrument.
Is this one of those little handheld clicker things I have seen?
No, this is much more advanced. It is a large, table-mounted instrument. The doctor inputs the specific coordinates, those exact vectors we talked about, directly into the machine. The instrument is then placed very lightly against the side of the neck.
And then what happens?
And then it delivers a percussion wave.
A wave.
Yes, a mechanical impulse. It happens so fast the patient often doesn't even feel it. But that wave transfers energy through the stylus, specifically vectored, to knock the atlas back into orthogonal position.
So it is not actively pushing the bone.
It is more like playing pool. You know when you hit the cue ball and it hits the 8-ball and the energy transfers, the cue ball stops dead and the 8-ball moves.
Right.
This instrument is transferring kinetic energy to move the bone exactly where the math says it belongs.
That sounds incredibly high-tech, and the source mentions it is gentle. I think a lot of people listening probably get scared of the cracking sound in the neck.
That is a huge barrier for people. With this instrument, there is no twisting, no popping, no cracking. The patient just lies on their side, the stylus touches the neck, there is a tiny click sound from the machine, and it is done.
So we have the what? A super precise, math-based instrument adjusting the top bone in the neck without cracking it. But we need to talk about the why. Why focus so much energy and engineering on this one little bone? You mentioned it holds up the head, but surely there are other important bones in the spine.
There definitely are, but none of them have the same neurological real estate as the atlas. It really comes down to location, location, location. As we mentioned, the atlas surrounds and protects the brainstem.
The brainstem. The source actually calls this the control center.
It does. It calls it the seat of innate intelligence.
Okay, innate intelligence. That sounds a little bit mystical. Can we ground that for the listeners who might be highly skeptical of the woo-woo stuff?
Sure. In standard physiology, we would just call it homeostasis or autonomic function. It is the automatic operating system of your body. You do not have to think about beating your heart, digesting your lunch, or healing a cut on your finger. Your body just does it.
Right. I am not sitting here actively telling my liver to filter toxins.
Exactly. That automatic control comes from the brain, down through the brainstem, and out to the rest of the body. The brainstem is the physical conduit. It's the main fiber optic cable for all those signals.
So if the atlas is twisted,
If the atlas is misaligned, even by that 1/10 of a degree, it creates tension on the brainstem or the surrounding tissues. It creates what neurologists call disafferentation.
disafferentation, that is a fantastic Scrabble word.
It is. But it basically just means bad data. The brain isn't getting clear signals from the body, and the body isn't getting clear commands from the brain. The source says when that happens, all bets are off.
The analogy they use in the text is a light switch, right?
Yes, and it is a very powerful visual. Think of the atlas as a dimmer switch or a main breaker panel for your house. When it is misaligned, it turns the power down, the voltage drops. The signals aren't getting through clearly, which means the body isn't functioning at 100%.
And the adjustment.
The instrument adjustment flips the switch back on. It removes the mechanical interference.
So when we talk about what this actually treats, obviously if your neck bone is crooked, your neck is going to hurt. That seems completely obvious.
Right. The source calls neck pain, headaches, migraines, and TMJ issues no-brainers. If the mechanical problem is right there in the neck, fixing the neck solves the problem.
But because we're talking about the brainstem and the entire nervous system, this main breaker panel concept, the source hints at something much bigger.
Much bigger. The source mentions seeing medical mysteries resolved. And this is where that critical thinking piece really comes in for the listener. If the nervous system controls absolutely everything, digestion, immune function, heart rate variability, sleep cycles, and you interfere with the master control center, the symptoms could show up literally anywhere.
That is where it gets really interesting to me. You might have a stomach issue or chronic fatigue or an immune system that just will not quit, and you would never intuitively think, oh, let me go check the top of my neck.
Exactly. Why would you? But if the power is turned down at the source, the dysfunction can manifest in ways that do not immediately scream back problem.
This leads us to a bit of a conflict mentioned in the text, a philosophical conflict. They call it the paradox of care.
Yes, this is the tension between what the doctor wants and what the patient wants.
I can definitely relate to the patient side here. If I go to a doctor, I usually have one goal: make it stop hurting. I do not care about your philosophy. I do not care about vectors or orthogonal angles. I just want the migraine to go away today.
And that is a completely valid perspective. The source fully acknowledges that reality. patients want relief. But the principled chiropractor, the one focused on this extreme precision, has a very different goal.
Their goal isn't to treat the symptom.
Strictly speaking, no. Their goal is to restore function. They want to fix the specific misalignment so the nervous system works properly. They operate as mechanics, not pain management specialists.
But doesn't that make the pain go away anyway?
It does, but the source frames it in a very specific way. It says that symptom relief, pain reduction, and disease resolution are just happy side effects.
Happy side effects. I like that phrasing. It sounds a lot better than the side effects they list at the end of drug commercials.
Much better. It means the doctor is focused solely on the cause, which is the misalignment. When that is corrected, the body heals itself. The doctor didn't cure the headache. The doctor restored the body's ability to regulate itself, and the body cured the headache.
It is a subtle distinction, but I see why it matters so much. It shifts the focus from patching the problem to fixing the machine itself.
Precisely. If you just patch the tire, which is treating the symptom, but you do not fix the alignment, the cause, the tire just wears out again. And the source argues that while the philosophy is interesting for the doctors to debate, for the patient, the result is exactly the same. Because Atlas Orthogonal restores that power, the patient gets what they want, which is relief, even if the doctor's primary focus was purely on the structure.
So let's zoom out a bit as we get to the end here. We started with the absolute absurdity of the wellness industry. The cold plunges, the expensive lotions, the edible sunlight.
But I still cannot believe that is a real thing people say.
I know. But we waded through that tsunami of marketing garbage. We looked past the $39 cheap special and the congratulatory slap on the ass.
And we moved past the endorphin hit of the quick crack that just keeps you coming back every single week forever.
Right. And we landed on this idea of extreme engineered precision. That maybe the future of health isn't about adding more things, more pills, more gadgets, more biohacks, but about making sure the fundamental structure is correct.
That is the core message of the text. The source believes that Atlas Orthogonal is the future because it respects the complexity of the human body. It uses advanced technology to match the body's need for exactness.
It is betting on fixing the light switch instead of just changing the light bulb over and over again.
That is a great way to put it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive today, what is the one thing you really want the listener to walk away with?
I think it is the provocative thought the source leaves us with right at the end. It calls the human body an astonishing healing machine.
I love that phrase. It is highly optimistic.
It is empowering. But it forces us to ask a very difficult question. If the body is a healing machine, if it heals cuts, knits broken bones together, and fights off viruses entirely on its own, why are so many people sick? Why are so many people struggling with chronic issues that never seem to resolve?
Right. If the machine is so great, why is it constantly breaking down?
The source suggests it is not because they lack a specific pharmaceutical drug or a specific cold plunge routine. It is because the power is turned off.
The main switch is flipped down.
Exactly. There is mechanical interference in the system. So for everyone listening right now, if you have been chasing symptoms for years or trying every new wellness trend that pops up on your feed with zero results, maybe the issue isn't what you are adding to your body. Maybe it is a matter of looking at that control center.
Is the power on or is it off?
It forces you to consider something really profound. How many of your health struggles are simply a matter of a fuse that needs to be reset at the very top of your neck?
It really changes your entire perspective on what health actually is. It is not just the absence of pain. It is the presence of full power.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
A fascinating question to end on. It definitely makes you think twice about your posture while sitting here listening to this, doesn't it?
I am sitting up much straighter right now. My chin is tucked.
Me too. Well, that is it for this deep dive into the world of precision chiropractic. We hope you found the signal in the noise today. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next one.